Hi, my name's Nikolai, aka 56miner, and today we're unboxing our July premium box. This month's box is all about working al fresco or on location. In this video, we'll go over the materials, talk a bit about the process of working outside, and I'll share some tips and tricks that I picked up while working with everything. Let's get into it. For our surface this month, we have the Honolulu Landscape Watercolor book, which is the perfect companion for working al fresco. This 30-sheet watercolor book offers us an A6 size paper with a fine texture to it that's super absorbent, and we can always work across it in a landscape format for a composition of 4x11. This month, we're super excited to introduce you to the SketchBox Signature Opaque Watercolor Palette. We've curated this set with color theory in mind so you can mix the widest variety of hues, and we've included the flat side so you can use it as a mixing palette. And for our brush this month, we've included the Faber-Castell water brush. This medium tip round brush comes with an internal chamber which we can fill with water, which is perfect for working al fresco. After filling the internal reservoir, all we need to do is screw that cap on tight, and our brush is ready to go. Now, to get a better understanding of our materials, I've gone ahead and swatched out our colors on our sketchbook. To showcase some of the techniques available to us from our water brush, I'm going to swatch out some of my favorite colors. Starting with our iris, we can create really subtle and beautiful gradients with our water brush just by allowing that water to dilute our watercolor. We can also use a wet on wet technique by adding some water directly to our sketchbook page and then going in and dipping in a little bit of our pigment. Here I'm using that indigo and just letting it spread through that wet page as it wants. Now with our iris swatch, we get a little bit of texture from the paper, and if you're looking to create the smoothest lines, I found that really saturating that nib with the pigment will allow for a smoother, more dynamic line. And as you can see with our red watercolor, we can achieve a variety of marks. By just saturating the tip of our brush, we can also create some fun gradients with a single stroke. So here I'm loading up the tip of my brush with that olive pigment and then applying it to the surface at a drastic angle. Now while we have these beautiful colors available to us, we can also create another variety of colors by mixing our primaries. For my color wheel, I'm going to use lemon, red, and blue-green, but you can try any combination of the three primaries that we have. Creating a color wheel is a great way to kind of level up your skill set with color. It makes you focused on the subtle differences between shades and can really help you develop as an artist. And here all I'm doing is creating a nice subtle gradient using the water from my water brush to fan out those colors. If you want to create your own color wheel this month but aren't quite sure what primaries to combine, try using rouge, pain, and pyrus together, or rojo, indigo, and honey. With my primary colors laid down on my color wheel, I'll go in and start to mix my secondary colors. So I'm going to take a little bit of our green-blue and a little bit of our red and mix up a nice purple color. And because we're diluting our watercolors, while they are opaque, they'll become a little bit more transparent as we water them down. So as that purple gets placed over that transparent red, we start to see a little bit more red-violet. Now when mixing a secondary color like orange, we're going to use just a little bit of red with a lot more yellow. Because yellow is the lightest value of our primaries, it's going to be really easy to overpower it with any other color. And if you ever find that your color is a little bit too strong, you can squeeze your water brush just a little bit to release more water onto your palette. This will help to dilute your colors and make more transparent washes. Now when we're working with our watercolors outside, we might need to remove all of the pigment from our water brush. And for that, I like to keep a paper towel handy. It's a quick and easy way to remove the pigment from your brush, and you can always use a rag if you want to use something on the go. Now, as we start to fill out the rest of the colors of our color wheel, we'll start to get into kind of half steps. So colors that are just a little bit more blue or a little bit more red, and that'll give us a lot of difference. When it comes to mixing our greens, we always want to start with just a little bit of blue and a lot more yellow, because as we add that blue in, that color will change drastically. Now our watercolors will reactivate just a little bit when we go over them with water again, so we can always smooth out our colors by using a clean brush or darken our colors by overlaying more pigment. Now, another really important part about mixing colors is knowing about color temperature. Every color will fall on either a warm or a cool scale. So here I'm taking our brown, which is a warm color, and I'm also going to take our pain, which is a cool color, and I'm going to mix the shades in between the two. By taking a majority of our brown color and adding just a little bit of that pain, you'll instantly see that our color becomes a lot cooler and closer to that of like a sepia or an ochre. Increasing that pain again will result in an almost green-gray, and this is because the yellow in those browns are interacting with the blue in the pain. Adding just a bit more of that pain color will result in almost a neutral gray, and then adding more paint again will give us more of a blue gray or a cool gray. Now, if you're mixing colors this month and feel that you're not quite getting the right one and might be getting a muddy color, try looking into your color temperatures. Now, the next item in our box is going to be the Faber-Castell Watercolor Pencil in Walnut Brown. Watercolor pencils are a great tool when working al fresco, as they allow you to sketch in your concept without committing to those lines. Because once we take our water brush to that pencil, it'll activate that pigment and fan out those lines. We can use our pencil on a damp surface, which will result in a much darker area, and it'll also result in some fun texture effects. And if we're not looking for texture and just creating smoother values, we can always blend those lines out with our water brush. Now, while working outside is great for your observational skills, it's also great for working on your composition skills. So when we're outside, we still have to decide how we're going to portray whatever we're viewing. And a great, quick way to do this is with thumbnails. Thumbnails are quick, exploratory sketches that allow you to kind of figure out where you're going to place everything in the scene. They allow you to explore things like moving the horizon line or changing elements in whatever you're viewing. This month I took some inspiration from our prompt, Explore, and visited a local college that had a really fun picnic area. Now, with my thumbnails fairly established, I can go in and start to explore my value composition, so I can decide what areas I want to be darker or lighter, and figure out exactly how I want to go in to make a more fully realized piece. Now, reviewing and analyzing my thumbnails, I think the top left and the bottom left are my favorite, so for my piece, I'm going to take a combination of the two. Now let's grab the final item in this month's box, the Copic Multiliner in Warm Gray. Now, last month with our reactive inks box, we kind of did a deep dive in the different techniques that we can use with fine liners. Here, I'm taking a more traditional approach and using them to draw in my scene. Because our Copic Multiliner is waterproof, no matter how much watercolor I put on top of it, those lines are going to stay put. Which is great because these lines are going to offer a structure when working with our watercolor palette, but they're not so dark that they're going to detract from whatever we're depicting. Now, once I'm happy with my sketch, I can start to go in with our colors. So first, I'm going to take some of our lime color, and I'm going to use it to establish the background. For my foreground, I'm going to take some of that lime color and mix it with our rouge, just to get a bit more vibrant green for the grass in the foreground. Now for my gazebo, I'm going to mix that neutral gray from our brown and paint colors and use it to establish some of the shadows and more structure to the building. For my sky, I'll take a bit of the indigo and blue-green and create a subtle gradient that gets lighter as it goes farther down. By creating gradients that kind of lighten as they reach the ground, we can imply that those elements are pushed farther back into the background. And we can use our wet on wet technique for areas like the trees or the grass to imply a bit more texture and imply those leaves instead of drawing each and every single one. When working in watercolor, I like to bounce around to the areas that I'm working with, as that gives them a chance to dry. That way I can go back in and layer my colors without them bleeding or activating anything else. For areas of grass, I'm going to make sure to use those smaller strokes so we can imply those blades. And I'm also going to mix in a variety of colors. So I'm going to mix my green with my browns and my reds, and that'll give us a more dynamic color range. Now it's really tempting, especially with a palette with such great colors like this, to want to use all of them. And while you can definitely make beautiful artwork with a large range of colors, the tighter or the fewer colors that you use, the more harmonious the overall image is going to look. At this stage, I've got a decent amount of color laid down on my surface, so I can really start to dial in those shadow areas by incorporating more of the paint's color into my greens. Now for a bit of a texture difference, I'm going to use our pencil in order to define the bark of the tree, but also the mulch of the walking path. Next, I'll go in with some white mixed in with just a little bit of our lime color and add some highlights to my tree, as well as emphasize those shadow areas using that paint color. While it's really tempting to use black for shadows, most shadows have a bit of color to them, so by using paint instead of black, we can still imply that really rich contrast, but we won't lose any color vibrancy. Now at this stage, I'm pretty happy with my piece. It's got some good color to it and value range. I'm just going to go in and add some texture details and emphasize those shadows a little bit more. I'm also going to go in and re-emphasize those highlights on the tree, as our white pigment tends to fade a bit after it dries. And with that, our video is complete. I hope you enjoyed it, learned a few things, and if you post your work online, make sure you use hashtag SketchBoxJuly. We love seeing what y'all create each month. And if you want to check out any of our previous videos, head over to our YouTube channel where you can like and subscribe. And I'll see you next month.